Hey guys, it's Nik the Booksmith. Welcome back, welcome back. I hope everybody is having a great day today. Thanks for popping in and joining me. I thought today I would make a book box. This is the book that I'm going to use to make the box for. Of course, if you decide to make a book box, your book will not be this exact size, but I will go through the process, and then that way, whatever size your book is, then you can translate those measurements to the same technique. Does that sound okay? All right, so the first thing that we do is we measure our book, and you'll need to find the width of the book from the spine to the foredge, the widest point. I'm going to go down to this bottom edge and measure from the edge of the end cap all the way to the edge over here of the foredge of the book cover, and that is 4.5 inches. We turn it this way, 6.5 inches. So it's 4.5 by 6.5. And then we need to find the depth or the thickness of the book, and it is 1 inch on this one. So we have 4.5, 6.5, and then 1 inch. I'm going to set this aside for now. This is the chipboard that I'll be using. It's from a file divider for a file cabinet, and I'd say it's about 1 millimeter thick is about what it is. So about the same as what you have on like the back of a notebook, the back chipboard on a notebook, something like that. But you're welcome to use thicker or thinner. Just be aware that if you use anything that is too much more thick than this is, you might have to leave more of a hinge gap. And I'll show you how I leave the hinge gap. But you might have to add like an extra millimeter or so it doesn't bind up. All right? First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make the inner box that will hold the book. I used the measurements that we just got, and I cut 2 pieces to be the same as the height, which is that 6.5 inches by 1 inch tall, because that was the height of our book. And then here is 4.5 inches, because that's the width, and it is also 1 inch tall. Now I'm going to take this piece of paper, and it's gift wrap. The reason why I'm using gift wrap is because it is long enough to where I don't have to piece anything together to make a full strip, because I'll show you what I'm going to do. So the size of this piece of gift wrap is about 3 times the height of the book, or the depth of the book. So this was 1 inch. Remember, the height of our book was 1 inch. So I made this, I think it's 3 inches or maybe a hair above, but it was right around 3 inches. And then as far as the length goes, you just need enough to where you can line all these up, long, short, long, short. And I'm going to use a little bamboo skewer to be a spacer. Move these aside. Mark the center line. So I'll go to like 1.5. And then that way I will have a guideline to line up these pieces. And it doesn't matter if you start with a short piece or a long piece, but you need to go back and forth. So we're going to do a long piece, and then a short piece, and then a long piece, and then the short piece. I already put tape on the back. It's double-sided sticky tape. My favorite brand is on the Amazon favorites list. And I'm going to come in about 1/2 inch from this edge and line up the top of this strip to that guideline. Now I'm going to grab a short one and use this bamboo skewer as a spacer and line that up with the top line. Now we need another long one. Our spacer. Line that up, and then here is the last one. If you have a really big book, you may have to piece some paper together, but it depends on your paper, I guess. There we go. So there is all the pieces lined up with the gap in between. And now let me grab narrower piece of tape. And you can always glue this too. You know, I use tape because it's quicker. And I'm going to run a strip of this tape all the way along this bottom edge here. And I'm going to take the 1-inch tape that I used on the back of these strips, and I'm going to go ahead and just run a piece all the way along the top to the end. Now I'm going to take the bone folder, and everywhere there's that gap, I'm going to take that bone folder and make a crease, and then at the end of the boards to the very end. And the liner paper might rip. That's no big deal. Go ahead and fold this over. Get it to where it's trained to fold. Now I will take that backing off. And now I will carefully fold that over so it's nice and snug. I don't want there to be like gaps and wrinkles, especially up at the top. And then again with the bone folder, find where those gaps are. And then on the end. And then I'm going to take the bone folder and I'm going to score along the bottom edge of those board strips. Just like that. And I'm going to use this quilter square, but it's not necessary at all. I'm going to trim this to where that edge is only like 1 inch beyond that board. So everywhere there is one of these creases, I'm going to just line this up just a little bit to a guide line on a grid line on my cutting mat. And I will line this up underneath it. That's why these little quilter squares are so awesome, because they've got the 45-degree angle. And so I will cut the angle up to almost up to that corner of that board, and then I'll just cut it off just to take out the bulk, because we don't need it. And then everywhere there is one of these crease fold corner thingies, I'm going to line that up with a guideline, then line the 45-degree up underneath it, and then cut a little rectangle, or triangle away. And of course you don't have to do that. You can just make a slice all the way up to the bottom of the board if you want, and then the corners will just overlap. It's really not a big fat hairy deal. But if you do have a quilter square and you do it this way, then it makes these little makes them mitered when you put the box together. Of course you don't see them, so really, it's just, it's just me being me, guys. So you don't have to be as ate up over the details as I am. Matter of fact, down here, I will just cut to the edge of the board and then we'll wing it. Look at me, flying by the seat of my veritable pants. I'm going to bend these down like so. Now I'm going to take the backing off of that strip of tape that we put underneath between these two flippity flaps. And before I stick it together, I'm going to hold it up like it will be when it's, when it's finished, and then stick these down together. If you stick them together before folding them up like this, then you might get like a little wrinkle where there's too much paper on this short side. So they were the exact same size, but see how this side is longer because when it folds up, this one has to fold around so it becomes shorter. So that's why if you fold them first and then stick them together, it's usually a much better finished product. And then here is when it's all folded up like this. You see the little mitered corners? It matters not. You can totally cut those straight because I tell you what, we're going to be lining the bottom, so you won't see it. It just lessens the bulk a little bit. So now that those are all stuck together, I'm going to take some more tape and put it on these little end flaps that will overlap each other. See, the short one I'm going to put to the inside, and then this long one I'll put to the outside. This side will get tape, and then this side. So let me put tape on this one. Before I fold it up into a box, I probably could have done this ahead of time, but I didn't. Hold that up. I'm going to put some tape on the bottom of this little flap. And I forgot to put this tape on the bottom flap when I first folded it over. So do as I say and not as I do. And maybe go ahead and put that on ahead of time. Unless you're gluing. And I'm not going to be using this tape yet, but it's easier to put it on now than it is after I fold the whole box up. Does that make sense? I hope it does. All right. So now I'm going to fold this up and I'm going to find that corner and then just fold those flaps around like so. And there is our inside box, and we will deal with this here in just a minute. Let's get to the outside. We're going to need a top and a bottom and a spine. Top and the bottom piece, the front and back cover of the box, whatever, need to be 1/2 inch taller than the book and 1/4 inch wider than the book. The spine piece needs to be the height of the book, which is 1 inch, and then the same height as the covers. Because the book was 6.5 inches tall, I went 7 inches. And because it was 4.5 inches wide, I went with 4 3/4 inches. Sound good? Then, where's my, take another piece of the gift wrap. And this piece of gift wrap is about, I think it's about 8 by 12-ish. Get the measurement, yeah, 12.5, which means that the center is about 6 1/4. And I want the center line because I cut this piece to be pretty much the size that it needs to be. But if you just unroll a piece from your gift wrap roll, then it doesn't matter. You can cut it out after you attach everything on. For this spine, I just went ahead and added some tape on the back of it. And I'm going to stick this down to the center. I probably should have marked the center line. So I will do that carefully without sticking it to the table. And I know that I cut this paper to be about 1/2 inch bigger all the way around the edge. Now it's important that there are gaps on either side of the spine. And I cut this little strip of scrap chipboard to be 5 millimeters wide. 5 millimeters is just shy of 1/4 inch, basically. Just line that up there. And I already put tape on the back of these covers. And with this little spacer in place, I will line the cover up with the spine piece and butt it up to that spacer and then just set it down. And then I can move this piece over that side and do the same thing with this one. And just because it's simpler to do at this point, I'm going to go ahead and put the tape on before I cut the corners. As far as the corners go, I usually take a scrap of the chipboard. I just stand it up on end and make a little mark. And I just make sure that I don't cut too close to the edge. And then I'll cut on the outside of that mark I made. I could trim off where there isn't any tape at the edge, I guess. I usually do the head and the tail first when I do a book, so that's what I'll do with the box too. I'm going to fold this over, and I'm going to stick down the spine first, and then work my way out to the edge. And then work the gift wrap into the little hinge gaps there. So here is the outside of the box. You can choose whatever side you want to be the top or the bottom. Makes no never mind. Okay, before we go on any more, if you want to add a closure, a tie, so that the box stays closed, now would be the time. And I cut these to be about, I don't know, 12 inches long, and I bevel cut one end. And I'm going to do about, I don't know, a couple inches of tape at the ends, and I'm going to place the edge of that tape right at the edge of the box in the center-ish. All right, for the inside now we need to line it, and I'm going to take a piece of the gift wrap, and it is, here I'll turn it over so you can see a little bit better. It's got tape on it already, but it needs to be just shy of the height. So we need to leave a little peak of cover on these three sides. And then it needs to come past the spine onto the back cover about 1/2 inch. So I've cut it so that it should go over just fine even after I work the tape down into these two grooves. And I'm going to take the backing off the tape, off of just a couple of them. And that way I can get it lined up before we commit to everything. And I'll smooth it onto the spine, and then down into the other hinge gap. So I probably cut it about, I don't know, 1/4 to 1/2 inch longer than I wanted it to be, so that when I fit it down into these grooves, it still comes over onto this back cover by about 1/2 inch. And the reason we want to do that is because then when we put this box on, I mean, we don't need to put it under here, because I'm going to take another piece and line that bottom. Make sure that the edges all the way around are stuck down well. All right, this box is going to get stuck down right at the edge of that hinge gap. So here's the edge of that hinge gap right there. And then the beginning of this back cover board. And we're going to be lining this box up with the edge of that cover board. So I'm going to take the backing of the tape off of just this edge. And I'm gonna line it up from top to bottom, make sure it's even as possible. And also, at the same time, line it up with the edge of that cover board. There we go. I think that's fairly decent there. And then I'll burnish that down and make sure it's good and stuck. And then I can take the tape off, or the backing of the tape. And then again, continue to eyeball it as much as humanly possible. And now there are a couple more things that we need to do. I'm going to take another piece of that chipboard, and it is going to be the same height as the box, not the cover, but the box on the inside. And then instead of being an inch wide, it'll be like 7/8. So just shy of what this spine was. And I'm going to take a piece of this paper again, and it is about twice the width of this spine piece. I'm going to mark the center so I see what I'm doing here. And I'll take off the backing of the tape I already put on here. There we go. And I'll take some of the skinnier tape. I'll cut the corners off just like I did last time. Basically, we're just wrapping this so that one side of it looks presentable. And this will get tape on the back of it, and then it will get centered onto this spine piece on top of it, just like this. And what this is going to do is it will take up the gap that is made because of where the box is set and the way the spine is. And so just trust me. And if you want to put this piece on prior to attaching the box on the back cover, be my guest. Okay, now I just need to put a little bit of tape on the back of this. Okay, now the last thing that I like to do is I like to take another length of ribbon, and it is about 10 inches long. Put tape on about the last 2 inches, and at the middle edge, middle-ish, I run it down one side and then down onto the bottom. And that serves to be a lift for the book when the book goes into the box. You can lift the ribbon without trying to get your fingers in there and get the book out. The box is supposed to be snug because you don't want it rattling around in the box. So that's why I like to put the ribbon in there for a lift. And then this just crosses over. And the reason why I put just a ribbon tie is so that it can still fit into the bookcase. And of course, the box can be decorated however you'd like beyond this point. I ended up putting some gold trim here and here, and I will link down below a video where I showed how to make your own gold trim. This little oval was just a piece of punched out chipboard that I painted with the same gold, so no secret there. I added these little embellishments to mimic the spine of a book, if it were placed into a bookcase, but I mean, totally not necessary. It depends on what you're going to be using these boxes for. If you will be making them to place books inside for protection, you can even label them here what that book is. And then that way, if you do either stack them, here's another one, like this, or you place them like this into a bookshelf, you'll be able to see, you know, what that label is and what the title of the book is. If you're just going to be using the box for, I don't know, sewing supplies, or there's really infinite possibilities for boxes, isn't there? I don't have to tell you that, but you can decorate them or embellish them or not, depending on what you're going to be using them for. All right. Well, that is it for this project. I hope it was helpful, and that if you decide to make a box for a book that you have, that you'll be able to just adapt with the size of your own book. I have all the confidence in the world that you'll be able to do that, and I hope this video helps with that a little bit. Alternatively, I just wanted to say that you can glue this part to the back of the spine. You don't have to leave it like a drop hinge. That's not necessary. I don't know why I left it as a drop hinge. It's just one more row of tape. You can make that decision if you'd like with your own box. But either way, it's still gonna open up in a similar fashion. Thank you all for hanging out with me today and joining me while I created this box. I hope everybody is having a great week, and I will see you all really, really soon in the next video. Bye, guys.